Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Here we go with the first debrief of 2026. And today's episode, it's about a fire that didn't need to be particularly big to be deadly. We speak about a lot of big fires and debriefs on here, but this one is, I think, really honestly quite scary. So I wanted to bring it back for us. On February 20th, 2003, a small ignition inside the Station Nightclub in West Warwick, Rhode Island, turned a normal Friday night concert into one of the deadliest nightclub fires, honestly, in modern history. 100 people lost their lives, hundreds more were injured, and the entire building was destroyed in less than 6 minutes. It wasn't a failure in response. Fire crews arrived quickly and in force. It was a lack of exits on paper. It wasn't even a dramatic wall of flame in the first moments. It was smoke. It was time. And it was how people behave when both of those things disappear. This episode walks minute by minute through what happened, what the investigations proved, and why most uncomfortable lessons from this fire still matter today, including here in the UK. So this is the Station Nightclub fire. Quick one, we're working in collaboration with the Blue Light Show, a national conference and exhibition built around one thing: blue light services do better together than apart. For learning, sharing, improving how we operate, it brings together fire, police, ambulance, and rescue all in the same place for actual proper conversations about leadership, operations, capability, and the challenges we are facing on the front line. It's about seeing what's possible, pressure testing ideas, and taking practical learning back into your organization. I'm going to be there 1st and 2nd of July 2026 at the event, getting involved with those conversations and connecting with people who really care about doing the job better across the blue light sector. Do not sleep on this. If you value collaboration over silos and you want to make insight into what's actually useful, Blue Light Show is the one to get in your diary. Visit www.bluelight.show. Book your spot. You will walk away with so many insights, fresh connections, and practical takeaways you can actually use day one back in the job. I'll see you there. I want to start by being clear about something. This is not a fire I want to revisit because it's particularly spectacular. And it's not one I'll come back to because it has dramatic flame spread or textbook tactical moments. I come back to this one because the Station Nightclub fire was uncomfortable in a very specific way. It strips away a lot of the things we like to believe about safety, about behaviour, about response, and it does it quietly and in a matter of minutes, not hours. This was a small fire that produced enormous smoke. Tenability was lost fast, and most people did not die because they were trapped by flame. They died because smoke took away their ability to think. So as you listen to this, I'm not asking you to imagine arriving necessarily as a firefighter. I'm asking you to imagine you're already inside the building. Because by the time help arrives, most of the important decisions have already been made. The Station Nightclub was at 211 Cowsit Avenue in West Warwick, Rhode Island. The building itself dated back to 1946. It had lived many lives before it ever hosted live music. It'd been a gin mill, a restaurant, a tavern, a pub. There had actually been a fire there before in 1972 when it was operating as a restaurant called Julio's. No one inside that at the time, but the interior was really badly damaged. The building survived it. It was repaired, it carried on, and that matters because buildings that survive incidents tend to earn trust they maybe didn't deserve. Each new use layers over the last. Each compromise becomes just kind of normal, to be honest, and that is happening a lot with buildings that get repurposed, that get reused. And by 1991, it was a nightclub. In 2000, it was bought by our brothers Michael and Jeffrey Darian. It hosted regular live music, often 1980s hard rock bands and tribute acts, and nothing about that night was unusual. And the months before the fire, the venue had been inspected. Minor violations were noted. The flammable polyurethane foam used to soundproofing around the stage was not identified, despite being against the code, unfortunately. And that foam is the quiet villain in this story. It didn't look particularly dangerous. It blended in, it solved the noise complaint problem, and like so many hazards, it lived comfortably in the background until it was given the smallest opportunity. So, let's go to the night itself. It's Friday night. Club's busy. There's 462 people inside. And despite the license capacity being cited as 404, but let's be honest, that doesn't feel alarming, particularly in most venues. feels like a pretty good night. The band that's on is Jack Russell's Great White. It's an offshoot of the original brand. People are drinking, talking, laughing, lights are low, the music is loud. No one's thinking about fire, let's be honest. And behind the stage, lining the drummer's alcove, is that polyurethane foam. Most people in the room have never consciously clocked it. Probably wouldn't even know what it is to look at it, to be fair. And I always think to pause there and ask myself, when was the last time I really noticed the wall linings in a venue I felt relaxed in? I worked on the doors for many, many years, stood in venues, looking at human behaviour more than anything. I didn't really look at the outsides of it until I started in the fire service. But at 11:07 p.m, the band begins their opening song, Desert Moon. And at the same time, tour manager Daniel sets off 4 pyrotechnic gerbs. These are like cylindrical devices designed to spray sparks into the air. You've seen them at lots of events. You've seen them in videos. You probably just don't know what they're called. And 2 are angled outwards at about 45 degrees. 2 points straight. And they are set to run for about 15 seconds. So it's not a fireball. It's not particularly dramatic. It doesn't look immediately dangerous. But within seconds, sparks contact the foam. 9 seconds after ignition, flames are visible on the wall above the stage. This is crucial psychological moment because at that point, fire is real, but belief hasn't really caught up with reality. At 10 to 24 seconds, we have misinterpretation and delay. Fire goes rapidly across the foam. Polyurethane, if you don't know, burns fast and produces thick, toxic smoke almost immediately. But in the room, not everyone particularly reacts. Some people think it's part of the act. Others notice something is off but hesitate. No one wants to overreact. People look at each other for cues, and this happens in a lot of chaos when you look at CCTV. This is where time starts leaking away. And the really unfortunate thing about fire is it doesn't need to be big if hesitation gives it room to do its work. And I always think about how often in normal life we delay action waiting for confirmation. That instinct does not disappear in emergencies, unfortunately. It actually gets stronger. Around 24 seconds in, recognition finally spreads. People realize this is not controlled. The band stops playing. The crowd begins to back away from the stage, and Jack Russell says into the microphone calmly, "Wow, that's not good." That sentence matters. There's still no screaming, no real stampede, just confusion. And by about 40 seconds, the band has left the stage. Fire alarm activates. It's loud, but it's not connected to the fire department. There's no sprinkler system. Smoke is now banking down hard. 40 seconds to a minute, smoke thickens. People begin to evacuate. But they don't spread across exits. They don't dynamically reassess the room or anything like that. They move toward the door they recognize. People often go out the way they came in, despite how good we try signage to be, and that's the front entrance. Around 275 people attempt to leave that way, and only the first 90 succeed. The narrow hallway leading into the exit becomes a choke point. Flow really slows down, bodies compress, people fall. And those at the back cannot see what's happening at the front. They feel pressure, but not cause. And this is not really panic in the Hollywood sense. This is crowd physics and human behaviour under stress, something we've had academics on the podcast on before. And exit blindness just sets in. Familiarity beats logic every time when oxygen drops. At 1 to 2 minutes, tenability just collapses. Thick black smoke fills the club. NIST, who are the National Institute for Standards and Technology, who did a lot of modelling on this, it later showed that tenability is already failing in parts of the building. Temperatures rise, toxic gases increase, and visibility collapses. This is the phase that matters the most, because around 90 seconds into the incident, conditions in much of the space exceeded survivability limits, and the main entrance becomes completely blocked by fallen bodies. The exit effectively stops exiting. Other exits are still there. Some people escape through the stage door, others through an employee door, others through a bar exit, and some smash windows and climb out. There's a lot of social media videos about this if you go and look for it. But most people do not turn away from the crowd that they are already embedded in. Once density reaches a certain point, choice just disappears. 2 to 6 minutes in, fire dominates, but it's already too late. Flames reach the ceiling and spread into the roof void. The building becomes fully involved within 6 minutes. But here is the uncomfortable truth. For many victims, the fire itself is no longer a determining factor. Smoke and heat have already done their work. People collapse where they fall. People just collapse where they are, overcome before flames ever reach them. This is one of the hardest lessons of firefighters to accept. Response time, command, tactics, none of that could really undo what happened in the first minute. But let's talk about the response. Fast, but really powerless against the time. The fire was reported to 911 within 60 seconds. A police officer already on scene also calls it in. The first fire engine arrives at 11:13. Mutual aid pours in as hundreds of firefighters respond. The Cowset Inn, which is actually across the street, becomes a sort of improvised triage centre. Hospitals reach capacity really, really quickly. Roof sections collapse before midnight, and by 1:30 a.m., the scene is declared. And by 1:30 a.m., the scene is cleared. 100 people are dead. 230 are injured. And it wasn't a failure of response. It's a reminder that some incidents are decided before we can even arrive. Let's talk again about what NIST made of it. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. So again, this is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They reconstructed the fire. They tested the foam. They modeled the smoke using fire dynamic simulation. And their conclusion was blunt. A sprinkler system would likely have controlled the fire long enough for everyone to escape. Not extinguished it heroically and not prevented ignition, just slowed it. Time was the missing ingredient in this one. The building was legally exempt from sprinklers. That should sit heavily with anyone involved in fire protection, codes, design, or enforcement. Criminal cases followed, civil cases followed, sentences are handed down, opinions divide. Some families forgive, most of us do not. Community fractures and then slowly tries to heal. In 2017, Station Fire Memorial Park opens at the site, but the changes ripple outward. Rhode Island bans pyrotechnics in small venues. Sprinklers became mandatory in nightclubs over certain capacities. And nationally, NFPA issues emergency amendments to the Life Safety Code, sprinklers, crowd managers, exit requirements. Training programs are developed to address the human factor, not just the building. Because the lesson is clear. You can't rely on crowds to behave rationally under smoke. Now let's bring it home. In the UK today, ignition might be less likely. Pyrotechnics are more tightly controlled, risk assessments on exits and stuff like that, but human behaviour hasn't really changed. People would still hesitate. People would still follow the familiar. Smoke would still collapse tenability really, really fast. Sprinklers are still debated quite a lot. Exceptions do still exist. The management systems still rely on early recognition. And response would still arrive after probably most important minute had already passed. Because a station nightclub fire is not a lesson about reckless bans or necessarily bad luck. It's a lesson about speed, about smoke, about how quickly thinking disappears. Fire did not need to trap the people. Smoke just needed to confuse them for long enough. And that is the lesson I keep coming back to. And it's one we ignore at our own peril. So I want to be clear about why we spent some time on this incident, because the station nightclub isn't a historical tragedy. It's a reminder how quickly normality collapses when smoke, time, and human behavior collide. It shows us that fires don't have to look dramatic to be lethal. That response can be fast and professional and still arrive too late to change the outcome. And that prevention, design, and understanding people is what matters just as much as the tactics on the day. This year, 2026, we're deliberately aiming to go wider and more varied with our debriefs. So not just the big fires, not just the ones that fit neatly into training slides, but incidents that really challenge our assumptions, hopefully cross borders, cross nationalities, and force us to think differently about risk, behavior, and decision-making. Some will be uncomfortable, some will be unfamiliar, hopefully, to a lot of the listeners, but all of them will be chosen because there's something we think is in them that's worth learning. And I'm genuinely thankful for all the continued support for the podcast, the messages, the conversations, the agreements, the disagreements, and also the quiet listens on the way to and from work. All matter more than you probably realize. This community that we've built is incredible. I love you all so much, and it's what makes these deep dives really, really meaningful for me, and being able to share them with you makes it really, really worthwhile. So wherever you're listening from, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep putting the work in. Train hard, stay ready, and most importantly, come home safe. I'll see you next time. Well, that's it for today, folks. Hope you took a lot away from that episode. We started the Firefighters podcast to develop, inspire, connect, motivate, represent, and most importantly, celebrate the world of incredible emergency services operators and the wider sector through this series of wide-ranging conversations. We really love creating this podcast and bringing it to so many people. Did you know you can also find these on YouTube? We do a lot of video podcasts now. You can head over to our YouTube page and follow, subscribe there. And as a final ask from us, whatever platform you're on, please rate the podcast. It really helps us as a key performance indicator to reach more and more people. I've been your host, Pete Wakefield. This has been the Firefighters Podcast. And wherever you are in the world, please stay safe, be happy, live with intention, and where possible, please remember and support your firefighters and first responders. I'll see you next time.